My name is Jack Hunter. My retirement rank was as a lieutenant commander in the Navy. After Spinax, I got orders to the USS Albacore, which was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, opposite coast, of course. Albacore was a research and development submarine. The USS Albacore was the first Navy submarine to have a teardrop or very smooth shaped hull. It was intended to go through a series of propulsion changes and control surface changes. Up until Albacore, about the fastest that a U.S. Navy submarine had ever gone submerged was around 8 knots. With Albacore, they were hoping to get it up to 40 or 50 knots. Now, a great deal of concern, point of concern was, how do you control a submarine at 30 to 40 knots? You have just a finite depth of water in which you can drive the submarine before, if you're going down, before you exceed what is known as test depth. And that is the deepest depth that the submarine is designed to go to. If you go beyond that depth, you are liable to wind up like the Schlitz beer can, and that's very crunched. So in a 300-foot submarine operating in only maybe 2 or 3 times its length in allowable depth of water, at high speeds, if you take a severe down angle, you don't have much time to recover before you exceed that test depth. So Albacore was designed to go through a series of different control surface configurations to determine which one would allow you to recover from a casualty the quickest with the least depth penetration. And so she would go through with one set of stern plane configurations, run all the tests, take data. She would come back into the shipyard. They would take the whole back end off the submarine, put on a new set of control surfaces, go back out to sea, run their tests, take their data. She would come back in, they'd take off the back end of the submarine again, put on a different configuration. Went through that 4 different times. And as I say, she was the first high-speed submarines. They tried a lot of equipment, a lot of things on Albacore. A lot of it made it to the nuclear submarines, which you'll see around today. A lot of the things that were tried on Albacore worked, but were decided that they were really impractical, or they didn't work. One of the things we tried was a series of dive brakes. Now, airplanes have spoilers that they can deploy on the wings to increase drag, to slow them down as they're coming into landing. One of the thoughts for Albacore was, well, let's try something like that to slow it down. If there is a casualty, make it, so that it would be more readily to be able to recover. So we had these 5 great big barn doors that would snap out into the slipstream and create huge drag. Well, it worked pretty well, except at high speeds, the water flowing over these doors tended to open them when you didn't want them to. So that was judged, it works fine, but no, it's not practical. Another thing we tried was to deploy a parachute off the top of the sail. Just like an airplane, the military jets used to decelerate once they've landed on an airfield. Well, that lasted fine for about speeds of 5 to 10 knots, and then the parachute tore away. So we tried a lot of things proved impractical. The submarine was commissioned in '53, decommissioned in '72, and interestingly enough, a shipmate of mine and I have just recently put together a book. It's called USS Albacore, Oral History. And the end piece for this book is a speech that was given by the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research and Development when Albacore was decommissioned. And the title of his speech was Albacore, the submarine that gave its body to science. And we thought this is a fitting kind of an exclamation point to this oral history that we developed. And it truly reflected all the achievements of Albacore in its 19-year life. And truly it did give its body to science. During my time on Albacore, we set one speed record for undersea submarines. This, bear in mind, we were a diesel-powered submarine, not a nuke. And so this was quite an accomplishment. Albacore was intended to go through 4 different phases, and I caught it in its last phase. And as I say, we set the speed record for a second time. Just before I left Albacore, we were participating in an operation which we all dubbed the Slippery Water Project, wherein we were trying to gain some additional speed through the ejection of a polymer substance around the hull to smooth the water flow. That seemed to work out pretty well. After Albacore, I went back to San Diego on a USS Madrigal,